Chairperson, it's fine. I'll submit in writing. I think the CEO was correctly briefed in terms of his responses. He's chowed a lot of my time. I can't come back. I accept, Chairperson. So
Just close the mic.
Thank you, Chair. I've said in joking that the CEO is a trained spin doctor. So we hear him very well when he communicates. CFO, let's have a chat about Tshwane North, Tshwane South, Mopani, Tibet College, Duurloop, Capricorn, Waterberg, Letaba, CUT, Motel. These are institutions that fall under the Tshwane, Limpopo, Free State and the Northern Cape regions. Let's first start here. In March, there were payments of, I think it was 13,400 rands, if I'm not mistaken, or 13K there, that were made that are obviously above the amount that was supposed to be made of 5,000 rands. Do you have an understanding of this and what happened there? I mean, can we pause my time while you take notes? I mean, I think you should know. Yes, it is.
So it's similar situation, right? It's what I would have explained previously. We've got students who are claiming the accommodation allowance, which is not linked to a private accommodation provider, and therefore the allowance is paid directly to the student. Why it exceeds the amount is because it's for a number of months. I think when we facilitated the payment in March, we were paying allowances for both February and March, and that's possibly why it exceeds the amount that was paid.
Can I pause you, CEO?
Yeah.
When I ask you, I expect you to know the true bone of the problem. It's not for you to have a possibility of a reason why you are responding. But to know for a fact why what happened. So if you're going to respond to say 13,000 rand as opposed to 5,000 rand was paid, this is the reason, you should say that with your chest.
All right. No, thank you. But I think in that being said, we have allowances are structured across a number of things, right? So allowance includes possibly accommodation, it includes living allowance, it includes the personal care allowance, and we can break that down in a spreadsheet to indicate exactly how those payments were made up. But sometimes it's over a number of months as well, so you're not only paying for 1 month.
In the interest of time, can you give a spreadsheet that justifies the 13K? But then the issue here also in extension, and I was hoping your CFO could have been able to help, of the 2.3 million affecting this region, the student accommodation providers were only able to recover 700K out of that amount. Why is that the case?
So it's a difficult issue, but in some cases we have students who are refusing to pay accommodation allowances over to their accommodation providers.
Yes,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. So we are doing our best to mediate. The last case scenario for there is to deduct the amounts of future living allowances due to students, which is the ultimate last resort that we don't want to go down. Okay. But that's largely the issue we're faced with.
Let's have a chat about the decision. So how did you end up from moving from paying directly to a student to an accommodation provider and moving to pay towards students? And I'm asking this because this region in particular falls under, I think it's training young minds. That's your solution partner. And to me, it doesn't make sense that that only solution partner that these institutions falls under is the issue that we're discussing. That payments haven't been made to them, that there's still issues. They're currently threatening action against you. They're threatening that on Friday they're going to be protesting, and I think you know this. They're threatening to cut down on transport, on Wi-Fi, and pretty much lock the doors of student accommodation to students simply because there's a problem. So I need you to explain then why that solution partner is treated differently from other solution partners.
In short, that solution partner did not upload the requisite documentation to confirm the required payment to a private accommodation provider.
So you're saying on record to all the service providers that fall under the solution partner that the reason why payments have not been made, and in some instances some were not made directly and there was a mix-up of amounts, is because Training Young Minds did not submit or upload the necessary information. I want you to repeat that because that's what
Yeah,
you said.
I think that's a bit of a stretch, is to say that if you, let's say that in the process of paying that batch, there was severe inefficiencies there that could not result in a payment through the solution partner. The requisite documents were not there to be able to facilitate that payment, and therefore the students were required to be paid directly. In terms of, you would have to get a more detailed report on exactly what those inefficiencies are. I don't necessarily want to blame the solution partner until we would have received a
I mean, you
thorough
just
report
did.
on
I
that.
don't know who the acting chairperson is. I will assume it's you, Wena, that deputy chairperson. The reason why I said you're a spin doctor is because it takes one to know one. And I listened to you very carefully. I'm not raising this because it's fun. The bottom line is that that whole region is complaining, or the series of TVET colleges, of student accommodation providers who are threatening mass destruction for students who are going to be left without accommodation, students who are going to be left without services. And in your words, you can't now say in your second response you think it's a stretch. Because you, in your own words, CEO, said that the reason why you haven't been paying, and in some instances you have paid short, is because there is information from the service provider side that is a problem. And the service providers are fighting all the time to say, but that is not true. So if that is your submission, because I have 8 minutes left and I need to move on to another issue, then I want to dare you to be the one to take responsibility, to submit then publicly what is it that these service providers were supposed to give NSFAS that they have failed to give NSFAS, which then justifies. Then the onus will be on them to prove that either they're lying or you are lying or somebody doesn't know. But before I move on, I have an additional question. Who are within the chain of distribution of responsibilities specifically oversees training young minds?
So let's take a step back. Right?
I have 8 minutes. Answer the question directly.
I
Who?
want to say, on the issue of solution partners, accreditation partners, NSFAS and institutions, there are multiple dependencies and responsibilities here, right? Confirming registration, uploading of lease agreements. So you cannot only blame a solution partner.
I
When
said to you,
dependencies can go wrong across the
I
board.
need you to help me here. I asked you a direct question. So answer it. And I'm asking you because I have questions to ask.
Yeah.
So I don't need you to.
I'm saying that there's
Answer.
failure on dependencies here that is resulting in late payments or underpayments.
Who?
You can't say who because there's multiple. Problems can be on the institution side, can be on NSFAS's side, can be on the solution partner side. You can't attribute blame to one institution or one individual.
Okay. So you're saying currently as it stands, you do not have 100% full overview of what the root of the problem as far as this particular solution partner is concerned. That's
No,
right.
and that's why we would have instituted a full legal review of the project here to be
That-
able to tell
that is okay. I'm going to. So we went on oversight to the University of the Free State in March, and part of the request I had made was for NSFAS to stay behind to resolve issues for students, which they did, and that I appreciate. I, however, want to read you a quick email that I have received from the student representation unit of the institution. I'm going to quickly say, Dear Honorable Khakhawa, I'm writing to you to urgently request your immediate intervention on the escalating and now critical crisis regarding the delayed disbursement of NSFAS funding for students whose appeals were approved at the University of the Free State. I'm going to skip a paragraph. It says, this decision has created a catastrophic situation for affected students. We have not received any funding since the beginning of the semester. Many of us who are now facing imminent evictions from our accommodation due to the lack of proof of funding, and we're still struggling to afford basic necessities like food. Compounding that crisis, We are now approaching the exam period next month, and we face the very difficult threat of deregistration and being forced to return home if these approved NSFAS funds are not received by the 31st of May 2025, and we are unable to pay tuition and registration fees, and our ability to focus on our studies during this critical time is severely compromised by our precarious living conditions and lack of food. A large number of students affected by this devastating situation are in their final year of study. This funding delay is not only preventing us from completing our degrees, but is also leaving us in a state of extreme vulnerability and hardship. So, and then the list goes on. So I'm trying to understand what happened, because you went there, you had issues with appeals, you left 5 days later and you said the issues were resolved. Why then am I receiving an email that says that we have been informed by the university that they have received instruction from NSFAS to hold the allocation of funds to these approved appeal cases? I don't know who can respond to that.
Yeah, I will allow the COO to respond to that question.
Okay, thank you very much, Honorable. So I think what should be emphasized is that we want to make sure that as far as possible all the payments are made, and we seek to ensure and to understand exactly what would have been the problem. And we did send a team from our side to go there and understand all of the challenges, exceptions in particular, to say what are those challenges so that they can be resolved. And in our understanding, a greater majority of those issues were actually attended to, and we were able to then say we will be in a position to can pay. So there are a few exceptions where there was an issue of funded but not paid. And I think it's important for the committee to understand that before disbursements can occur, institutions must upload and complete the registration templates, and this is now pertains to the process. And then NSFAS must then process and approve these templates before releasing the payments. And that is important because we have to go through it, because we need to be able to make sure that each and every ID number is accounted for in terms of the rent that we're going to be paying. And therefore, there is an allocation that cannot be approved without this verification.
Can I pause you, COO?
Yeah.
The issue here is simple. Your team was there.
Yes.
Students are within the financial aid office. They're there in the institution. They are there within the institution. They're saying this is our registration status. It's pending your guys' approval of our funding. You give them approval. The university says, Shab Zindo, Kumnandi, let's get on track. And then after you leave, the university tells students that they received communication from you, which is an instruction to hold the allocation of funds to these approved appeal cases. So I don't understand. Is it UFS that is lying to people, or is it you that told UFS that the approved cases that you are dealt with must now be turned around?
No, ordinarily we wouldn't do that.
You didn't do that?
No.
So you're saying on record the University of the Free State is lying to students, the management is lying to students
No,
who
I
have
think-
approved?
Okay, so I think we just need to get a better understanding, of what it exactly means. But from our case, we cannot say that.
It's
we
clear,
should not
COO,
pay.
and I understand your predicament, but it's very clear. So you go, you solve issues of appeals. They are submitted, they are solved, you move on, you move. When you come back, the same students that you resolved, the university comes back and says, no, but we can't have you anymore because there's a glitch, whatever. So if you are saying on your end you haven't changed anything, then you are pretty much saying the problem is with the University of the Free State. I'll take it up with the University of the Free State, but I wanted you to have it on record that as NSFAS you were saying you help students and you haven't changed your communication to the University of Free State as far as the approval of funding for students is concerned. You
Yes.
haven't given out an instruction contrary to the one you left to the University of the
No,
Free
we
State.
did not.
Okay, that's fine. This brings me to the missing middle funding, CEO. I understand that you are communicating that there is a challenge as far as the uptake is concerned. But my real collection says that the application process for the middle class was neither here nor there during the beginning of the year. And even when you were dealing with allocations of funds and allocations of an assessment in the beginning of this academic year, you hadn't solved even the staff allocation to deal with that problem. That's a fact. Number two, when people are applying, you were conflating the SARS status versus the Beru status for parents, which means that what the Beru says and what SARS say obviously put me in an economically different position, which you would understand better than I do as a CA. Have you resolved that? And how have you resolved it?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Through you, Chair. I think where things are as it relates to loans. So all loan applications have been assessed, right? All 2025 loan applications have been assessed. Those which met the criteria for a bursary have been converted into a bursary and students have been duly informed. Those that did not meet either academic or eligibility criteria have equally been informed. And those that are funded have been informed of their funding and their disbursement process. The loans does have an appeals attached to it as well, so we can provide the status on loan appeals if there are any. But that's where we are. As it relates to issues of staff allocation, and the loan applications were assessed in their entirety. I have mentioned in the presentation that I think NSFAS does take on board functions without building requisite capacity, but that's something we can address going down the line. The funding for the missing middle has been granted to us for 3 years. There's a substantial balance on that funding, which is to be utilized, and therefore we need to build the capacity to be able to administer.
SARS versus Beru?
Yeah, so I think that's a bigger problem than just on the loans, right? SARS data is the most effective data as the custodian of all tax affairs in South Africa. Now, because of previous mistakes, SARS terminated its relationship with NSFAS, and therefore for the 2025 academic cycle, NSFAS could not use SARS data for the application cycle. And therefore, we've had to revert to using data from credit bureaus. We have taken steps. We meet with SARS on a monthly basis. There was internal controls that they wanted us to be able to build, these related to policies and governance, which we are addressing on a monthly basis, so that by the time we get to the 2026 academic year, we have rebuilt our relationship with SARS and we are able to access and place reliance on their data.